This is Sergio Betts from Westwood, Los Angeles. And I'm not even going to act calm right now because my local team, UCLA women's basketball, is in the Final Four, and that means everything gets bigger now. The conversation gets louder, the narratives get lazier, the national voices get stronger, and every little weakness gets magnified.
But this is exactly why I wanted to make this episode, because by the time this goes up, some of you may have already watched my 3 videos on what UCLA has to do to beat Texas, how UCLA cannot afford another slow start,
and why the standard has to rise immediately before Friday night. But this episode is the deeper layer. This is not just the emotional layer. This is the roster layer, the structure layer, the depth layer, and the part of the matchup that too many people are skipping because they want to reduce this game to Lauren Betts versus Kyla Oldiker, or Rory Harmon versus UCLA's perimeter defense. That is part of the game, but that is not the whole game. And if you stop there, you miss the real pressure points that are going to decide whether UCLA plays for a national championship or goes home. And I want to start with this, because it matters to me personally. I'm from Westwood, Los Angeles, in the sense that this is the program I cover, this is the program I pour into, this is the community I care about, and this is not me parachuting into a Final Four matchup just because it is big. I have watched this team build toward this moment. I have watched them win through structure, spacing, defensive control, and possession-by-possession separation. So when I say I'm excited, that is real. But excitement does not remove responsibility. If anything, it increases it. Because when you get this close, the details matter even more. The things that look small in film on Wednesday and Thursday become the things that decide possessions on Friday. The closeout angle matters. The help timing matters. The pace after a defensive rebound matters. The first 4 minutes matter. The opening offensive possessions matter. Who gets touched first matters. Who gets comfortable first matters. And against Texas, especially against Texas, UCLA cannot drift into this game and try to feel it out. They have to arrive with force, but not reckless force. Structured force. Disciplined force. Final Four force. Now, let's get into why I even wanted to record this episode, because there is a major matchup problem in the way people are discussing Texas. Too many conversations about Texas begin and end with 2 names, Rory Harmon and Madison Booker. And yes, they deserve that attention. Rory Harmon is the pulse of the team. She is the organizer, the pressure creator, the emotional thermostat, and the guard who can make a game feel like it is being played on Texas terms if you let her settle into rhythm. Madison Booker is a different kind of pressure. She is size control, touch, poise, and shot creation that can distort your defensive shape if you are late, if you are soft, or if you are undisciplined. But if UCLA walks into this game only obsessed with Harmon and Booker, then Texas has already won part of the mental battle. Because the real problem is not just those 2 stars. The real problem is what Texas becomes when the ball leaves Harmon's hands, when Booker draws help, when the primary action flows into second action, and when their size and depth start pressing on your disciplined possession after possession. That brings me to the front court layer, because this is where I think the deeper conversation has to start. Everybody nationally wants to make this about whether Kyla Oldiker can handle Lauren Betts. And yes, that battle matters. Oldiker is a real center, real size, real physicality, real interior presence. She is not just a name on a graphic. She can absorb contact, hold space, and make things more difficult around the paint. But the bigger question for UCLA is not just whether Oldiker individually neutralizes anything. The bigger question is whether Texas can create cumulative front court pressure through multiple bodies, multiple looks, and multiple moments of interior resistance. That is why I am looking beyond one matchup and into the broader layer that includes players like Brea Cunningham, Lovisa Usbrink-Hose, Taya Sidbury, and Justice Carlton. This is where Texas can try to make the game feel crowded, heavy, and uncomfortable over time. Not just on one possession. Over time. Over the course of a half. Over the course of runs. Over the course of fatigue. That is what UCLA has to be ready for. And this is why Wednesday and Thursday matter so much in practice, before tip-off Friday night. Because this is not the kind of opponent where you can just say, we know they're stars, let's load up on them. No. UCLA has to practice the second and third layer of the position. What is the weak side positioning when Harmon gives it up? What is the communication when Booker catches, probes, and then forces a shift? What is the rebounding response when the first contest is good but the second effort is not? How does UCLA want to defend Texas when the first action gets blown up, but the possession is still alive? Those are the details that have to be sharpened right now. Because Texas is not dangerous only when their stars are scoring. Texas is dangerous when they are stable. Texas is dangerous when they are organized. Texas is dangerous when they feel like they can keep pressure on you without needing one perfect player to carry every possession. That is what makes them a Final Four team. Now let's talk about the guard and wing support layer, because this is one of the biggest reasons I wanted to make this episode. If the public conversation is Harmon and Booker, then the internal film room conversation has to be Brianna Preston, Sarah Graves, Jordan Lee, Ashton Jugg, Aaliyah Crump, and Grace Prenter. Not because every single one of those players is going to dominate the game, but because every single one of those players exists inside the shape of the game. They affect where the ball goes, who gets to breathe, who gets to reset, how Texas spaces the floor, how they survive a little pressure, how they maintain lineup balance. And how they attack the moments when a defense is overly tilted toward the obvious names. This is where UCLA has to be incredibly sharp. You cannot overhelp so dramatically on Harmon and Booker that you start giving clean comfort to the secondary layer. You cannot win the headline matchup and lose the position. And that is what I think UCLA has to understand before this game even starts. Texas will test whether your discipline is real or whether it only exists when the ball is in a star's hands. And I also want to say this because it connects directly to what I've been saying about UCLA's slow starts. Against Texas, a slow start is not just being down 6 or 8 early. A slow start against Texas is allowing their ecosystem to settle. It is allowing Harmon to start dictating tempo. It is allowing Booker to catch in comfort. It is allowing Oldacre and the interior bodies to feel like they can own physical space. It is allowing the secondary guards and wings to breathe. It is allowing Texas to believe that the game is already unfolding the way they want. That is why UCLA cannot treat the opening minutes like they treated stretches of that Duke game. This has to be a wake-up moment from possession 1. The cuts have to be sharp. The floor has to be spaced. The decision-making has to be quick. The defensive communication has to be early, not late. The transition defense has to be urgent. This cannot be one of those nights where UCLA says, we'll settle in eventually. No. Settle in immediately or you may spend the rest of the night chasing. What gives UCLA a real chance, and not a fake chance but a real one, is that this team at its best does not win from chaos. It wins from clarity. UCLA at its best does not just out-talent people, it outstructures them. It makes the game feel long. It makes you guard longer than you want to guard. It makes you rotate longer than you want to rotate. It makes you stay honest possession after possession. And if UCLA is serious about winning this game, then it has to impose that kind of game on Texas. Not a frantic game, not an emotional game, not a revenge game, a control game, a spacing game, a discipline game. A game where Lauren Betts is not isolated as a savior figure, but empowered as part of a full system. A game where the guards do not just survive pressure, but answer it with clean reads and clean tempo control. A game where the wings understand that every off-ball detail matters, because Texas will absolutely punish lazy spacing and soft backside awareness. And let me go back to Michaela Onyenwere for a second, because I think this is one of the most misunderstood parts of the matchup. If people talk about Onyenwere only as the one who can guard Betts, that is way too simplistic. The better question is this: can UCLA make Onyenwere defend in the full geometry of the game? Can UCLA make her guard movement? Can UCLA make her choose? Can UCLA shift the help timing around her? Can UCLA make Texas pay for loading up? Can UCLA create angles where interior defense becomes a reaction instead of a strength? Because if UCLA turns this into a static wrestling match all night, that is too narrow. UCLA has to use its system to widen the court. That does not mean avoiding physicality. It means reorganizing it. It means making Texas defend more than one thing on the same possession. It means using discipline as a weapon. That is how you stop a physical matchup from becoming the only story. The same thing applies to Madison Booker. I do not want UCLA defending Booker like she is just a scorer to contest late. No, Booker has to feel bodies. She has to feel timing. She has to feel a defense that knows where she wants to get to before she fully gets there. She is too smooth to just react to. You cannot wait on players like that. You have to shape the possession early. You have to influence the catch. You have to shrink the comfort window. And then after that, you have to finish the possession. Because even the best first defensive action means nothing if Texas gets to the glass, resets, and scores anyway. This is another reason that the depth conversation matters. Texas does not need every non-star to explode. Bang! They just need enough second-chance pressure, enough floor balance, enough structural support, and enough physical presence to make UCLA's discipline crack. That is what Wednesday and Thursday practice should be preparing for right now. And I want to speak directly to the UCLA side of this, because I think this is where the emotion of being a local team meets the responsibility of real analysis. I am excited that UCLA is here. I am proud that UCLA is here. I think this program has earned this stage. But being excited cannot turn into being protective. I am not interested in babying this team right now. This is the Final Four. The standard is higher now. The details have to be cleaner now. The concentration has to be stronger now. The urgency has to show up sooner now. UCLA cannot afford to be flat, unfocused, or waiting for someone to rescue the energy of the game. This team has enough leadership, enough talent, enough experience, and enough structure to play better than that. So if I sound demanding, good. This stage requires demanding. And if UCLA handles this week the right way, then Friday does not have to feel like a mystery. It can feel like a test they are actually prepared to pass. I also think this is the kind of matchup where the national conversation can completely miss what is really happening. People will talk about stars because stars are easy. People will talk about the prior result because previous games are easy. People will talk about physicality because physicality is visible. But the truth of this game may be hidden in less glamorous places. It may be in whether UCLA gets matched up in transition. It may be in whether Texas secondary players get clean touches in rhythm. It may be in whether UCLA keeps its spacing under pressure. It may be in who wins the first 4 minutes of each half. It may be in who forces the other team to play the harder version of the game. That is why this episode matters to me, because I do not just want to say UCLA needs to stop Harmon and Booker. That is obvious. I want to say UCLA has to stop Texas from becoming structurally comfortable. That is a much deeper demand, and that is where real Final Four preparation lives. And if you watched my earlier videos, then you already know I've been warning about the slow starts, the standard, and the need to wake up fully before Friday. This episode is the expansion of that warning. because Texas has too much quality to let them settle in while you search for your rhythm. This is not a team you spot comfort to and then expect to fully erase it later. UCLA has to set the temperature. UCLA has to bring the sharper focus. UCLA has to bring the cleaner first half. UCLA has to turn this game into a game of decisions, not reactions. And if UCLA does that, then this is not a hopeless matchup at all. It becomes exactly the kind of game this team was built for. A high-level, structured, disciplined, possession-by-possession battle where habits matter more than hype. So, as we move into Wednesday and Thursday practice, this is what I would be emphasizing. If I'm looking at UCLA through the lens I always use. First, no soft opening. None. Second, defend Texas as a full structure, not just as two stars. Third, make the interior matchup dynamic, not static. Fourth, shrink Booker's comfort before the move, not after it. Fifth, disrupt Harmon and then punish what Texas looks like after the ball leaves her hands. Sixth, dominate the possession finish. Rebound, reset, and do not gift life back. Seventh, keep UCLA's offensive spacing clean enough that Texas has to defend the full floor. If UCLA does those things, then all the outside narratives about Texas toughness, Texas physicality, and Texas being everyone's favorite talking point do not disappear, but they stop controlling the game. And that is where I want to close this. I'm Sergio Betts from Westwood, Los Angeles, and yes, I'm excited because my local team is in the Final Four. But more than that, I'm locked in because this is the exact kind of moment where coverage has to mean something. This is the exact kind of matchup where you cannot live on surface-level names and casual talking points. You have to see the whole shape of the game. You have to see the layers. You have to see the depth. You have to see the stress points before they become the story on Friday night. And for UCLA, the opportunity is right there. Not in pretending Texas is simple, not in pretending the game will be easy, but in understanding the game more completely than the lazy national conversation does. That is the edge. That is the work. That is the standard. And if UCLA meets that standard from the opening tip, then this team has every right to believe it can walk through the desert and into the national championship game. I can also turn this into a cleaner, humor voiceover version, with shorter breath group sentences for easier narration. This is Sergio Betts from Westwood, Los Angeles, and this is the second layer of this Final Four breakdown, because if my last episode was about Texas as a system, this one is about how Texas will try to break UCLA's system.
And I want to be very clear from the start, because this is where the game can flip fast. Texas is not coming into this matchup trying to out-execute UCLA possession by possession in a clean, structured game. That is not their identity. Texas wants disruption. Texas wants discomfort. Texas wants to take UCLA out of rhythm, out of spacing, and out of control. And the way they do that is through pressure, physicality, and forcing turnovers that turn into momentum. So if UCLA walks into this game thinking this is just about half-court execution, they're already behind. This game starts with ball security, decision-making, and whether UCLA can stay composed when Texas tries to speed everything up. And this is where we have to talk about turnovers first, because this is not a small detail. This is the game. Texas is going to pressure the ball, crowd passing lanes, and make every entry pass feel uncomfortable. They are going to try to turn normal possessions into rushed possessions. They are going to try to turn simple reads into late reads. And once that starts happening, the game shifts from UCLA's control to Texas's energy. That is what UCLA cannot allow, because turnovers against Texas are not just empty possessions. They are fuel. They lead to transition. They lead to early offense. They lead to a crowd reaction. They lead to momentum swings that are hard to slow down once they start. So UCLA has to treat every possession like it matters, because it does. This is not the kind of game where you can afford careless passes, loose handles, or hesitation at the point of attack. Now let's talk about how Texas is going to defend specifically, because this is where the individual matchups come into play. Texas is going to throw multiple looks at UCLA's guards. They are going to test ball handlers with pressure, they are going to shade drives, and they are going to try to make UCLA initiate offense further out on the floor than they want to. That changes everything. Because when your offense starts higher, your spacing shrinks, your timing gets disrupted, and your options become more limited. UCLA has to be ready for that. The guards cannot play passive. They cannot pick up their dribble early. They cannot allow Texas to dictate where the offense starts. They have to meet pressure with control, not panic. That means strong handles, quick decisions, and trusting the system instead of trying to over-dribble through pressure. And then we get to the most important individual matchup on the floor, and that is how Texas defends Lauren Betts. Because Texas is not going to guard her one way the entire game. They are going to mix it. They are going to bring physicality. They are going to bring help. They are going to test her patience. There will be possessions where they play her straight up. There will be possessions where they dig down from guards. There will be possessions where they collapse hard and force the ball out of her hands. And UCLA has to be ready for all of it. This is not just about Betts scoring. This is about Betts reading the defense and making the right play every time. If Texas overcommits, the pass has to be on time. If Texas stays home, the move has to be decisive. If Texas gets physical, Betts has to stay composed and not get pulled into frustration. Because that is part of Texas's plan too. They want to make this game feel healthy. They want to make every touch feel like work. Now let's expand that to the starting five, because this is not just a Betts game. This is a UCLA system game. The starting guards have to protect the ball. The rings have to maintain spacing. The cuts have to be sharp, because if one part of the system breaks, Texas will attack it immediately. That is what makes them dangerous. They do not need everything to go right. They just need you to slip. And UCLA cannot slip. Not in this game, not at this stage. The starting five has to set the tone early, not just with energy, but with precision. Clean possessions, strong entries, smart reads, no wasted movement, no wasted dribbles, because every small mistake against Texas has a bigger consequence. And this is where the bench becomes critical, and I'm going to say this clearly because it matters. Players like Angela Dugalic are going to be extremely important in this game, not just for scoring, but for stability. When the starters rotate out, the structure cannot drop. The discipline cannot drop. The spacing cannot drop. The decision-making cannot drop. Because Texas will absolutely test that moment. They will look to attack when rotations happen. They will look to speed the game up when new players come in. So the bench has to be ready to enter the game, already locked in. No adjustment period, no feeling it out. Immediate impact, immediate awareness, immediate discipline. That is how UCLA keeps control across all 40 minutes. Now let's talk about defensive schemes, because Texas is not just going to sit in one look, offensively or defensively. UCLA has to be ready for man defense, but also for zone looks. Texas can show zone to disrupt rhythm, to force UCLA into different spacing patterns, and to make them think instead of react. And UCLA cannot get stuck against that. The ball has to move. The spacing has to adjust. The gaps have to be attacked with purpose. No standing, no hesitation, because zone is not about stopping you completely. It is about slowing you down, breaking your rhythm, and forcing you into late clock decisions. UCLA has to stay ahead of that. Quick reads, smart movement, purposeful cuts. That is how you break a zone before it becomes a problem. And then there is the physicality. And this is something that cannot be ignored. Texas is going to be physical. On drives, on cuts, on rebounds, on post entries, on box outs, on everything. And UCLA has to match that without losing discipline. Because there is a difference between matching physicality and getting pulled into chaos. Texas wants chaos. UCLA wants control. That is the battle. Can UCLA stay disciplined while absorbing physical pressure? Can they take contact and still execute? Can they stay composed when the game gets rough? That is where games like this are won or lost. And I want to go back to turnovers one more time, because this is the foundation of everything I am saying. If UCLA protects the ball, they give themselves a chance to control the game. If UCLA turns the ball over, they give Texas exactly what they want. It is that simple. This is not a game where you can survive 15, 16, 17 turnovers and still feel comfortable. No. Every extra possession matters. Every clean possession matters. Every decision matters. And that has to be emphasized in practice right now. Ball security, passing angles, pressure reads, strong catches, strong pivots. Everything has to be sharp. And here is the part that I think a lot of people are missing, and this is where I agree with you completely. UCLA can match up with Texas. This is not a mismatch game. This is not a game where UCLA is outclassed. UCLA has the size. UCLA has the structure. UCLA has the interior presence. UCLA has the discipline when they are locked in. The question is not whether UCLA can match Texas physically or structurally. The question is whether UCLA can maintain that level for the full 40 minutes without slipping into bad habits. Because Texas is going to test that constantly. So when I look at this game, I am not just asking who scores more or who has the better player. I am asking who controls the terms of the game. Does Texas turn this into a disruptive, turnover-driven, physical battle where rhythm is broken and possessions are rushed? Or does UCLA turn this into a controlled, structured, disciplined game where spacing holds, decisions are clean, and every possession has purpose? That is the real matchup. That is the real question. And as we get closer to Friday, this is what UCLA has to carry into Wednesday and Thursday practice. Ball security first, matchup awareness second, defensive communication third, physical readiness without losing discipline fourth, and full system execution fifth. If UCLA does those things, then this game is exactly where they want it. If they don't, then Texas has a path to control it. I'm Sergio Betts from Westwood, Los Angeles, and this is what the Final Four is about. Not just talent, not just names, but control versus disruption, discipline versus pressure, structure versus chaos. And UCLA has everything they need to win this game if they stay true to who they are for all 40 minutes. Go Bruins.